Today, we're going to talk about pros and cons of both hiring your own sales development representatives and outsourcing this function to a third-party vendor. Hi, my name is Andrew, and I've been doing sales development for SaaS businesses for over 5 years now. And today, we're going to talk about whether you should hire your own SDRs or outsource this function to another company. We're going to go through the main differences in terms of results, the budget you should allocate, and the time you should invest in taking the team off the ground. First of all, let's outline the main responsibilities of an SDR. SDR, or a sales development representative, is a junior member of the sales department. He or she is responsible for generating new opportunities for your sales team. Therefore, all the main responsibilities lie around finding prospects, reaching out to them via email, phone, and social media, identifying prospects that are interested, and scheduling discovery calls and demos for your sales team. The vast majority of companies hire SDRs locally due to various reasons. Some companies prefer to keep the function in-house because they want to control the sales process A to Z. Some don't believe in outsourcing in general, and some think that the quality of meetings they will get from an in-house SDR will be higher. So let's look into the pros and cons of having an in-house SDR. Let's start with pros. First of all, having your own SDR in the office allows you to control the process, which might be important for young founders and sales leaders. The second thing is education. As soon as you have an SDR in your office working with your team, chances are this SDR will be educated on your processes, products, or services faster. And the third thing is teamwork. When your in-house SDR is up and running, if he has the ability to work with senior salespeople on your team, his transition to the sales role is highly likely to happen. Now, let's outline the main cons of having an SDR on your own team. The first and the biggest one is the budget. According to Glassdoor, the average compensation for an SDR in the US is $49,000 per year, with up to $22,000 being added on top as a performance bonuses. On top of that, you have to add hiring expenses, software subscriptions, and other associated expenses like space. That makes an average SDR alone cost anywhere between $5,000 and $9,000 per month, considering your software expenses remain below $1,000 a month, which is not usually the case. The second one is remote workflow. With a huge portion of companies switching to remote work, having an in-house SDR doesn't make as much sense as it used to. Having a remote SDR is pretty much the same as having the team overseas, but 2 to 4 times more expensive. The third thing is scalability. Your team can only hire and onboard a certain number of SDRs at any point of time, which creates a huge lag between deciding on the volume of opportunities your team needs to generate and hiring all the team members to support that and getting them up to speed. And the fourth one is the most important one, is your time investment. If you hire a junior person on the team, somebody will have to manage the process, which includes defining your ideal customer profile, making sure your SDR is going after the right type of prospects, preparing content for outbound campaigns, etc. So with an in-house SDR, you have to either factor in the SDR manager to make everything work, or you will be spending days reviewing leads and writing email templates and writing call scripts. Now, let's talk about an alternative to hiring an in-house SDR, which is outsourcing this function to another company. I'm going to focus on working with vendors, not freelancers, because working with a freelancer is pretty much the same as having an individual SDR on the team, but a bit cheaper. So why do companies decide to outsource this function? Let's outline the main pros of having the company to do SDR work for you. So the first one, and the most obvious one, is the budget. The vast majority of companies that do lead generation are able to set up the whole SDR team of 2 to 4 people within a budget that is just enough for one in-house SDR. That increases the value 2 to 4 times, with the budget remains the same. The second one is important for teams that are growing. As lead generation companies have dozens or even hundreds of SDRs on payroll, they are able to scale the team both ways very fast. That means that as soon as you make the decision to increase the number of meetings for your sales team, a lead generation company will be able to assign and train an SDR in a couple of days to a couple of weeks. And the third one is simplicity. As opposed to having an in-house SDR team with a lead generation company, you don't need to spend time reviewing leads, writing email templates, call scripts, defining the strategy, etc. Lead generation companies have their own content departments, quality assurance, and project managers, which allows you to focus on your work and invest up to 1 to 3 hours per week in managing your SDR efforts. Now, let's talk about the cons of outsourcing your SDR efforts. The first downside of outsourcing is the commitment. Most lead generation companies want you to commit to a 6 to 12 months contract prior to even doing a pilot or a trial. That's risky, so you have to pick the vendor very carefully. The second one is the education. Lead generation companies usually don't want their SDRs to transition to a more serious sales role. Therefore, chances are that your SDRs will remain an SDR until the end of times. And you would need to hire a salesperson instead of promoting your SDRs. And the third one is a communication gap. Most lead generation companies are located overseas and even work different business hours, which leads to a huge delay in communication, scheduling calls, etc. This one can really be fixed by hiring a company that works your business hours, which is pretty much the only way to go if you are planning to scale your efforts. So, to summarize, the pros of having an in-house SDR team are the following. First, controlling the process, which might be important for young founders and sales leaders. Second, education, as your SDRs will be able to transition to a more senior sales role in the future. Third one, teamwork, as your SDRs will be able to work with other team members and learn faster. At the same time, the cons of having an in-house SDR team are the following. First, and the most important one, is the budget, as it's 2 to 4 times higher if compared to outsourcing. The second one, a wide adoption of remote workflow, which destroys most of the benefits of having an SDR in-house. And the third one is a huge time investment that is required from you. Now let's summarize the pros of outsourcing SDR function. So here is how they would look like. First, the budget, as it allows you to have 4 times bigger team when you outsource. Second one is scalability, as you can scale the team both ways within a couple of days to a couple of weeks. And the third one is simplicity, as you don't need to buy software, hire content writers, or define the strategy. Everything is being done by the lead generation company. The cons of outsourcing SDR function would be the following. First one, the commitment, as most companies want you to sign the contract before you try out their services, which is super risky. Second one, education, as most SDRs won't transition to a senior sales role. And the third one is a communication gap, as some companies work different business hours and don't respond in a timely manner. There are obviously much more pros and cons for both having an SDR on your team and outsourcing the function, but today we covered the most important ones, as from my opinion. We'd love to know more about what you think and pros and cons that you find important, so feel free to share them in the comments section. Subscribe to our channel and see you next time.